4th of 2025. City Clerk Clark, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember O'Rear.
Here.
Councilmember Root.
Here.
Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Roche.
Here.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
Here.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Here.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Here. Please rise as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Each member of council has received a copy of the minutes from our May 27th committee of the whole meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as written. Item 5, citizen comments. We did have several people sign up, and we'll begin with Meghan Medearis. If you would come to the podium and state your name and address, and your timer will begin once you begin speaking.
Hello, my name is Meghan Medearis. I live at 19 Hanshaw Court in Simpsonville. I moved to Simpsonville in 2009, and although I live in the county, I'm really glad to call Simpsonville my home. I do own 3 properties inside the city limits. With a 6% property tax rate that the state of South Carolina bestows upon investors, it's really hard to be able to have cash flow and to save for capital expenses like a new HVAC, roof, etc. In 2023, I converted my long-term rental in Westwood to a furnished 30-plus day rental, which is called a midterm rental. This model has allowed me to have enough cash flow to finally have a cushion for future capital expenses. Since that conversion, I have had 5 tenants, so 2 years, 5 tenants. 2 were relocation to the Simpsonville Greenville area. 1 was a travel nurse who worked in Clinton but wanted more conveniences that Simpsonville had. And 2 were insurance stays, which means they currently live here already, had a problem with something, 1 house burned, 1 was a pipe burst. And the insurance paid to have them relocated while the repairs were done. I'm telling you this to educate you because not all short-term can fit nicely under that umbrella. Because many people don't know that this is a newer strategy called midterm. So I don't use Airbnb. I found very little traction on VRBO, so my listing is hidden. I primarily use furnished finders, which was initially created for traveling nurses. I don't use a rental agreement. I use a lease that I paid a Greenville lawyer several $1,000s to create back in 2021. I am a licensed property manager at charge, but I only manage my own rentals. They're in Simpsonville and all in the county and in the city. My most recent tenant would not have been able to comply with the proposed 1 vehicle for bedroom regulation. The husband and wife had personal vehicles. Their son in his early 20s lived with them, and he had a personal vehicle and a work vehicle. I have a concrete paved driveway where it's single and it's tandem, and then I have a 4x6 line compression run. There are 4 cars in that residence, but they're a pipe burst in their home. They had to find alternative arrangements. They stayed with me for 90 days, not me, but at my property for 90 days. I just wish you, or want to make sure that you understand that short term is not just a weekend or a week, that many people that need temporary or alternative housing that fall under your short term umbrella are actually residents of Simpsonville or city or county that have had issues and need to relocate temporarily. So I wanted you to know what that was in regard to the short-term regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Britney Mims.
My name is Brent Medearis, 19 Amstar Court. You just heard from my wife. But so this is going to be related to what Meghan just mentioned. My thoughts about how you move forward with determining the best model for this is doing just what you're doing right now. We appreciate it. We love the city. We love the great reputation that we have. We want people to come here. Most people are not coming here for tourism per se. They're coming because of work or family events and so on. Particularly, I am the person that renovates the properties that we have and everything. And one thing I want to call to your attention is we probably do, we put a lot more attention to detail into properties that are going to be short-term rentals or mid-term rentals or what have you, because it needs to be much nicer than any ordinary hotel room or what have you to attract new business. Therefore, we really care for them to have a good experience. So I think that's the additional thing that we offer as, if you want to call us landlords or whatever, offering these short-term, mid-term opportunities. Another aspect to this as we go forward with this process is trying to avoid creating something else that has to be enforced. For example, we have, as Megan mentioned, a driveway with parking for probably 4 cars and an HOA, or maybe there's not an HOA, but there are already rules in place for the number of cars that can be parked there. Can it be parked on the street, what have you? So just trying to limit adding additional criteria for short-term rental hosts or what have you to have to meet when there's an existing law or homeowners association or something in an agreement in place. But those are my main concerns as we move forward. I'd love to hear how, if there are other cities the same size and has the same needs as Simpsonville, how they've done it well, and how there's a good partnership between landlords per se and the city, and because we want to keep, we would love to keep this wonderful city kind of how it is. It's a small town that offers a lot of cultural things that you just usually don't find in a small town. But that's it. I am so glad I got a chance to be here. Your building's gorgeous, by the way, and one of our properties is right across the street. It's available soon. But anyway, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next is Sean Phillips.
Hi guys, my name is Sean Phillips. I have a property owned with my wife, Wiker Realtors Shawnee Sherry Group at 302 Northeast Main Street, downtown Simpsonville. I want to talk about short-term rentals today. So I just seen the word short-term rentals, so I wanted to come and just say thank you so much for having that on the agenda to talk about, but also I appreciate that there's conversations about regulations and not just eliminating short-term rentals. So I do have 3 short-term rentals in the Simpsonville area. And what I've noticed since having those since 2017, when I moved my business in downtown Simpsonville, is that we needed people to come to downtown. It's a growing area, and what we've done since 2017 is we've received over 500 5-star reviews. And the people that come to Simpsonville, they're coming because they're visiting family. For graduations, for funerals, for happy things, sad things, celebratory things, but not for vacations. So we attract a lot of families. So with those being right next to our real estate company, we're able to actually welcome them to Simpsonville, tell them about the best restaurants, to actually use that invitation for a place to stay near their family. It's actually, now you're here, let me tell you how awesome Simpsonville is. So Ed's Grill is right across the street. They visit there all the time. So thank you for having short-term rentals and talk about regulations. One thing I want to bring, the thing that stood out the most, because I read it a couple hours ago and summarized it, but 6 months is, in my opinion, too long of a short-term rental definition. I would say, with everything, I would say let's learn from people that are where we want to be in big cities. They actually have 30 days. And I think it goes in line with 30 days is actually the milestone of having a tenant-landlord act in place. And there's a lot of things that you cannot evict, and there's certain things that now you have to have a lease in place. So there's certain things that I think they have a timeline for a reason, so let's learn from those big cities. Also, it's my understanding that in South Carolina, I believe that the accommodation tax, it cuts off at the 90-day mark. So you can't get any more accommodation taxes after 90 days anyways. So it's one of those things to regulate and for the city to not capitalize on is a waste of effort. You guys are so busy and doing a fantastic job in Simpsonville. I love how much you guys have done since we moved here. But I want to make it easier, but also there's two examples I'll say real fast from this week alone of my clients. One moved out of their house because they felt called to start a foster care program at another house. They left their house empty and they wanted to rent it out for a couple months. If they have too much red tape, they can't do that. Another example is I have a house under contract and they're selling it. A military family is going to be moving in, but not right away. So they actually offer to the sellers, they don't have another place to stay, you can stay there for 2 more months. But if we have these red tape and these regulations of having to go through this hoop, they might not be able to rent it out to the families that are in need. Thank you.
Next is Britney Mims.
Good afternoon. I am Britney Mims, and I'm here to talk with y'all about the 5 Way.
Thank you.
So Dr. Britney Mims, 5 Way, I am here to speak with you about Parks and Rec and our youth programs and these programs that cultivate our young people around here. So I have coached for the Simpsonville Rec Department in the girls softball program for the past 2 years after moving to Simpsonville from Alabama. And most recently I coached the undefeated 10U girls Purple Rain team, and also coached the all-star team for 10U, and we beat Greer, Malden, and then Mountain Inn for the championship for Golden Strip. Didn't see anything about it on the website, but it was posted, and I know we got the MB6 grant, so that was really cool. But I wanted to talk with y'all tonight about the girls that play for Simpsonville Rec. Because every girl that plays for this all-star team through Simpsonville Rec also plays for the travel softball team that we started called the Simpsonville SAS. And I, along with John Harris, who's a Malden resident, so we can't talk to y'all, but we started this, and this past February we came to a city council meeting and we spoke with y'all and then spoke with Robbie. And he said that, he would love to see the Simpsonville softball program grow. And I would too. But over the past, years, they've had a little bit of trouble with that, mainly because the girls that play rec tend to go to travel softball teams in other parks that have travel softball. Well, over the past 6 months, we've grown the softball program. We've won a championship for our district, and now we have not one but 2 travel softball teams. I do 10U, and our other coach, Frank Moore, he started a 12U travel softball team based out of Simpsonville Rec Girls. So I guess what I need from y'all, what I'd like to speak with you about is just, can y'all recognize our Simpsonville Rec teams, or our Simpsonville SAS as a Simpsonville Rec sponsored team? There's a beautiful sign. Can I bring this up there?
Thank you. Welcome.
So, like that sign says, that the fields cannot be scheduled unless it's a Simpsonville Rec sponsored team. My girls struggle to get field time because of a bit of an ambiguous policy that the rec department does not schedule field time for anybody but those rec sponsored teams. I've emailed, I've called, I've talked face to face with Chris, Chad, and Robbie about getting field time for these young ladies, but I've had limited to no results. If we do get a response from them, the fields are, we're told that the fields are first come, first served. I feel like this is a terrible injustice to our community and its taxpayers and these kids and their parents. These girls need a place to practice, y'all. It's as simple as that. And we shouldn't have to fight other travel teams, whether it's baseball or softball, that aren't even affiliated with Simpsonville Rec, to play over at Heritage Park. As a coach for Simpsonville Rec and a mom of a very adorable 9-year-old kid in the back, it's probably really mad I said that, a Simpsonville resident and a taxpaying citizen, I would just like to propose to the city council that they recognize the Simpsonville SAS girls 10U softball team as a Simpsonville Rec sponsored team. And this way, if this proposal is granted, practices could be scheduled by the Simpsonville Rec Department on team sideline, just like they are during the rec season. This way our young ladies will get ample field time, and our parents will know what time to bring them. They will know that we will have a field. It won't be as ambiguous and difficult as it is now. We are literally fighting every afternoon. My mom, I have 3 children, she gets up there at 4:30 some days to get on a field so we have practice time.
This is, I'm giving you extra time because I thought the controls here, but I need you to wrap up.
So, just to finish, I would like to see this softball program continue to grow. I am happy to be a part of it. I love Simpsonville, we moved here, it's a beautiful town. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this softball program and these girls, have a future for the sport. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tyler News.
Yes, my name is Tyler Mims. This is Philadelphia. Also, I am Britney's husband. So just to tag in with her and reiterate, we are advocating for lower exposure and more cooperation with the Simpsonville Recs Department. One thing I wanted to bring to attention is that the 2 main people for Simpsonville Recs, Department of Recs, is Mr. Chris and Mr. Chad as the director and the assistant director. But if you go to the website and found in, they have 1 director, 2 supervisors, 2 coordinators, and a senior adult assistant. I would like to advocate that we see about maybe getting Parks and Recs some additional employees, whether that be an administrative assistant and or coordinator, to help with some of this. As a softball and baseball parent, it's very difficult to get communication with them, either that via the phone or the email. And I know those guys are extremely busy out there trying to prep the deals, and there is always a lack there. If they had some more help, I think that would greatly help out. That would also help out if you go to the website, there is a Hillcrest baseball camp this week at Heritage Park. Which then you do have to pay to go, but there is no mention of softball and has been no communication about that. If there was an administrative assistant or a coordinator, we could have some more opportunities for that, which then would bring more exposure to Simpsonville softball. On top of that, I know that Heritage Park is a big place. We've been to several different travel ball parks. There hasn't been one in Heritage Park. So that facility is being greatly underutilized in that, which is economic opportunity, and once again will give more exposure to Simpsonville, whether it be softball and or baseball, which then in turn hopefully will get a snowball effect with the middle school and high school programs as we continue to develop athletes in this area. So I'm advocating for more help, more communication with Parks and Rec, but also and hopefully your ear to say that they do need some help out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Grace Mims. Oh, Grace. Grace doesn't want to speak. It's okay, Grace, we don't mind. John. Thank you, Grace. Next is Frank Moore. Mr. Forrester, I did not forget him. I'm just putting on baseball, softball there. Mr. Moore.
Awesome. My name is Frank Moore. I live at 6 Normal Court. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Appreciate it. I am the other coach for the 12U travel softball team. Mine is called the Simpsonville Surge. So I wanted to obviously tell you about my branding. You can see what we look like. Thought I did a good job of putting the city in there as well. So the big thing is I've been doing rec for 5 years now. My daughter started when she was 7, turning 8, and now she's turned 12. So I've grown within the rec department myself. I've been one of 2 coaches, for the most part, that's been sticking with the program for the last 5 years. And this past year, what happens is once they turn 12, they phase out of the program. So what I decided to do is try to do something for those girls that are phasing out. So I started a 12U program, and I talked to some of my parents. The big thing was the cost of some of these travel programs. So I came up with a program that allowed them to do 6 tournaments this summer with 2 uniforms, helmets, as you can see right there, I put it all there for you for $375, which is cost affordable for most families out here. If you go down the road to Elite, it's going to cost you a lot more. So I was able to get some girls from the rec program to obviously stick with the program, and they're playing with me this summer. I have 2 coaches, Devin Warlaw, who's been with me for the last 5 years as well, coaching rec, and David Moore. Actually, his daughter is this Team Simpsonville. So he wanted to let you guys know that as well as Kate Moore. So we're well represented within Simpsonville, I feel, as well within the coaching staff. Again, so the thing that I'm looking forward is this field time. Back to what Britney was talking about. There's a lot of other travel organizations that are using the field, being they know it's first come, first served. So I've been out there at 4:30 in the afternoon, knowing I start practice at 6. This past Tuesday, I paid for for Presbyterian College's coach to come and run a practice for us. I paid out of my own pocket, and I had to be there at 4:30 to make sure we had a field. So I was afraid that if I got there at 6 when it started, I'd have a coach there with no field to show us girls some drills that she was going to show us. So that's always my fear when I get there early, because we have a team from Fountain that shows up. We have Elite actually uses our field as well on the road. They use the fields here and there for their facility there. So that's just kind of the struggles we have, just to make sure we have field time for those girls. It'd be great if we could just go ahead and put something down on the calendar and say, hey, I have this time and Brittany has this time. Since it is, involving the rest girls and trying to give them something to hold on to and continue to play, even when they do phase out once they get to that 12 age. So that was really what I was wanting to talk about, is to make sure to see if we can get some field time scheduled and see how we can do that. I even talked to Chris about maybe I can just, put a schedule up there. I don't mind doing something to help out. Where we can list our times on the field. So if someone comes out, they know, okay, those are Simpsonville teams, that's the time they're going to be there, and they can work around that schedule. I only practice Tuesday, Thursday, so there's 2 days out of the week that I'm really on that field. So it's not a whole lot of time we're asking for. It's just give us 2 days a week for my team, and I'm sure Greg is fine the same as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Frank. Yep.
Last speaker is Joel Forrester.
Hey, my name's Joel Forrester.
Mr. Forrester, I just want to give you a heads up. We have an issue with our timer system, so if I'm going to blanket you, please ignore that.
I'll take it for free, but pretty good. 116 Vanguard, just over in Cedar Cove. Longtime resident of Simpsonville, lifetime resident of Greenville County. And I want to talk to you tonight about the golf cart regulations. There's new laws that went into effect May 22nd. And part of this law allows local municipalities to make their own changes to regulations as times they can drive and where and when. Now the 35-mile-an-hour limit, I'm totally fine with that, because you really don't want to be anywhere else on the road with the golf cart speeds over that. But what I'd like to talk about is extending the times, like summer hours, or even in the fall and winter. We might be doing something, there might be something at the park, runs a little late, it's dark. Right now the law states daylight hours only. And part of the regulations for registering, you have to have headlights, taillights, and horn flashers, which to get your permit, you have that. So I'd just like to visit, seeing if the council has thought about, or would consider thinking about making some extensions to the operational hours. You might be over at a friend's house watching a ball game, or something going on in town, but still operating within the guidelines and things like that. Not trying to change anything, just to maybe extend the hours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester. That concludes our citizen comments. Item 6, staff reports. Begin with our financial report, and since we are down a financial director, we're going to turn to Mr. Coe.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. You should have received in your packet a copy of our monthly financial update for the month of May 2025. I'm more than happy to attempt to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Coe regarding the financial report? Item 16, city administrator report.
Great.
Mr. Coe, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, you have received a copy of the City Administrator's Report for June 2025 in your packet. I would like to highlight just a few things. We are actively working with our public assistance consultant on reimbursement for Helene-related storm damage. Things at FEMA are taking quite some time, which I'm learning is the usual course of business. But we have a great advocate we're actively working with. Obviously, in the municipal complex, we have acoustic paneling, which is in the process of being installed. Everything that you see behind you is going to be completed within the next couple of weeks. You can expect some felt batten that's installed to cover up the buttons and all the seams. So from my vantage point, the acoustics seem to be better this evening. So, but we'll proceed accordingly to make sure that everything is satisfactory for the council and for the public. One last thing I'd like to call attention to is our downtown revitalization and streetscape project. Co-administrator Grace Lee, Director West, and Director Derby and I met with our civil engineers from Cotransco 2 weeks ago, and we discussed a phasing strategy for the project. And so we have scheduled a meeting for this coming Wednesday to sit down with Cotransco and to talk about what that might actually look like. And it's our hope that we'll be able to craft a meaningful scope of work that's going to enable us to work within available financing for the city. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those items or any other items. Oh, actually, Mr. Mayor, there's one other thing I would like to add. And this was last week on June 18th. Mayor Shoemaker and we attended the quarterly meeting of the South Carolina Conservation Board. And we were there in support of the Lomas family, who are the current owners of the portions of the Moore Farm on Horsepen Creek, just on Jonesville Road. They own approximately 111 acres, and they intend to place that property under conservation easement. And so they were able to acquire some funding through the conservation board, and again, the mayor and I were in attendance, and it was, even though the property is technically outside of the city, it's contiguous. It's actually contiguous. Basically, we could, Councilman O'Reilly, you might be able to throw a football all the way out to the woods to hit it.
Across the creek.
You could walk across the creek. There we go. Even better. So it's very close to the city. And Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I will just add that in terms of what you would like to see in development and growth, this opportunity to preserve 111 acres of farmland right in the core where all this massive growth is going is amazing. And I'm just so impressed with the Lomas family, who are foregoing offers of millions of dollars. The developers are literally knocking on their door trying to obtain this property so that they can grow the final crop on that farm, rooftops. And the Lomases are saying, no, we want to preserve this as a farm, and obtaining funding from the Conservation Board and some other sources and going under the Conservation easement managed by the state forever. We'll see that be
an amazing legacy that the Lumps family has left to the county and future generations of this county. Thank you, Mr. Coker. Any further questions? Councilmember Rick.
I just like to add that I know the mayor asked me about this a while back, so I'm glad I got that done for you. I look out my back deck and I can see, whenever I can see their property. In the summer, the trees are full of leaves and it's pretty, so I'm very happy with that because that's, I think it's probably 200 acres they have, so I'm at 111. It's quite conservation because I think they've always expressed that they would like to keep it that way. And like you said, I don't think you can emphasize it's worth a lot of money for avoiding that. So thanks for that.
So one comment I'll make is that I think the 200 acres you're referring to is there are actually 3 different pieces of property owned by 3 different property owners. One of them being our chief judge, Judge Moore, as a matter of fact, who he is interested in getting his property in conservation. And then I'm not sure what her relationship is, but she's the neighbor that's literally right next to the city. That's I think it's a park here. So they're talking to her as well about the first big piece of it. So very special. Any further questions or comments for Mr. Coker, Mr. Drew?
Just in light of some of the conversations tonight, I would be interested if you would possibly get with Administrator Gracie on her way out, and maybe Mr. Davis, and speak to some of the issues tonight that was brought up, and maybe update me and other members of council who might be interested. Specifically, why a team within the city, the city rec team that has uniformed citizens go around trouble getting deals over teams out. And I'm asking these questions now, and I'm pointing fingers as to why they go around the call to get to it.
Sure.
If y'all could get that information and maybe other members of council who like feedback, and we can all sit down and talk amongst ourselves. But I would be interested into why that is and what we can do to maybe free up some field space for actual city rec league teams rather than allowing the outside teams to kind of take place present over the city game. I'm interested in that. If y'all can find it out, then great, we can echo to these folks as well.
Yes, sir.
That's what we're
I'll open that way too. I love this Simpsonville racecourse from way back when. I think there's a difference here. We didn't have travel ball teams then. We played seasonal sports. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we're going to have to do is try to carve something out that's going to allow us to put a travel ball team under the Simpsonville umbrella to get them practice field time, things like that. Because they're not truly a rec team per se, they're travel ball. I know these girls try to participate on regular teams and then travel ball. So I think that's what we're going to need to work on, is what kind of carve out or how we can include, I guess, like with our term sponsorship of travel ball teams that, like, Councilmember Root say, wear the banner of Simpsonville across their chest and on their helmets. And I would be very interested in speaking with Councilmember Root and other interested members of council, see what we can do to do that, because I know what it is to represent the city play sports. So I'd like to see that again.
Yes, sir.
That's what we do.
Yeah, switch gears on a little bit. I want to talk about the downtown streetscape project. I don't think I'm the only councilman or even anybody in the city of Simpsonville would like to see this thing gain some traction just for an idea. When I first got on council in January 2024, the meeting that night said that we were going to go out for bid in March and it would start groundbreaking in May, a year ago. And I appreciate that we're going to go out and break this down into phases. I've been an advocate for that for a while, knowing that the latest estimate that I've seen is 2x plus what we had in the original bond. The question that I've started with is when you are talking with these engineers, when you're talking about breaking it down into phases, and I've talked to you about some of the phasing of it, is that breaking it down to bid phase 1, then bid phase 2, then bid phase 3? Is that the approach?
At this point, it's unclear how many phases will be required, but certainly we're trying to identify what a meaningful phase 1 would look like. We need to make sure that the improvements are sufficient to yield the desired result in terms of traffic flow and safety and the other primary goals of the project. But in terms of what an additional phase or phases, that's something that we'll need to determine. And again, we have that meeting scheduled for next week, so I'll have a lot more information shortly.
Okay, so, and I know we talked about it a little bit before, we talked about 3 different phases. Concentrating on the traffic to start with, I would like to suggest maybe in their discussions with engineers and others, is that possibly putting it out in packages that would include the whole project with options to do the phases in sequence. That would give council an opportunity to say you actually got bids, and it would give you a total cost analysis of the entire project with 3 separate or whatever phases it would take, with those options going forward. And if you had one contractor that was ultimately the deciding bid, you did phase 1, it would be easier to go into a phase 2, especially as regards to infrastructure goes. Stopping and starting projects is never good. Your cost of mobilization goes way up, and as you know, the cost of everything has gone up over the last couple of years. So I highly encourage when we talk to these engineers that we look at, and I appreciate that we might not be able to do the whole package, but at least if you know what that is going to look like in the future, it gives council an opportunity to go, oh, let's go for it, or not. And then you can break this down to where we can have something meaningful in the future. Especially concentrating on the near-term needs, which would be the traffic flow and the infrastructure. As we discussed, the infrastructure portion of it is about as important as anything, because it gives opportunity for future growth in the city, well, not just the streets, but from electrical communications, from sewer and stormwater and all that. It'll totally enhance the downtown area.
Any further from Mr. Coe? Thank you, Mr. Coe.
You're welcome.
We have representatives from each of our departments here, usually our department heads. Are there any questions from the department reports from the council? Councilman Brochet.
I have some questions for Chief Hanshaw. I'm sorry ahead of time, this does not come really new, but you're the top members I can ask you. I'm seeing 26 auto break-ins in the month of May, and it looked like on your chart, on your loaded report, that it was the highest cases compared to everything else, 501 cases. And they look kind of like they're kind of localized into one area. And my inclination is to ask for more night patrols, because I do believe it's happening mostly at night, am I correct?
Yeah, typically we see that more at night than you do in the daytime.
Okay. But then I also see that we're short by 7 officers in your dispatch. And so I can see how that's a problem filling that gap. And so I guess what I want to know is what are we doing to fill in those empty positions? Are we doing a high campaign going? Are we offering up the salaries and benefits to compete with neighboring cities? What can we do better?
Well, the salaries is why we put that on the, on the agenda originally for the first budget, and we're waiting on the Archer study, so that's very important for us to stay competitive. We've had some unusual
losses that were not kind of out of control, out of the norm. We do currently have one who started today, so the numbers you have are going to be a little bit off because I've got one starting that started today, one I've got one in a couple of weeks. They'll be starting. They've completed the process, so that'll fill 2 positions. We just got to finish their training through the academy and all that stuff to get them running. Take a little time, but we'll get them there. We are currently actively rescheduling some new testing for potential new other candidates, and we are looking. We had a meeting about discussions on alternative ways to recruit and look for options that might help to beef this up. We're seeing a trend in this profession, unfortunately, over the last several years, that we're not getting as many applicants, and what we get is harder to get through all the processes to clear all the hurdles for them to complete everything to be satisfactory to hire and get started in a job. So these are all things that we're facing. The pay is very important. It's a big part of it. We've got to stay competitive. Got to be able to give us a way to compete with what's going on around us in Greenville County. To address your question about the auto break-ins, we do see these in spurts. Typically, it's not unusual this time of year when school's out, unfortunately, because a lot of times they will have the kids that end up being a big player in this game. When we see these things, when we end up catching them or identifying them. So that's not unusual. We have actually got some of our investigators altering their shifts so that we can focus a little bit on some of this stuff too. So that we are doing some things in-house to try to adjust and see what we can come up with what we are at. The staffing issues are what they are, but we're managing. It's nothing for us to be panicked about right now. We do need to address it. We're not going to let it sit. We are actively, like I said, we're looking for some ideas and solutions. And again, we're putting in all the effort to get us back where we need to be.
You did a great job when you came to my neighborhood and met with all the neighbors that were concerned and told them, hey, don't leave this in your car, don't leave that in your car, this is what they're looking for, don't leave them alone, don't leave your garage door open or in here, or your access to your house, etc. I wonder if maybe you could, I guess I need to run through the city administrator, but I'm thinking some sort of a little bit of an ad campaign to kind of spread that word a little bit more online, maybe with our public relations. This seems something you told us just.
And we do from time to time, we will do the PSAs, if you will, about these different factors to how to reduce the likelihood of being a victim. It's unfortunate not everyone takes the advice or listens, but we are pushing out there. We do try to do some things to get that out in the general public outside of those meetings that you're referring to.
Councilmember Hodges.
Chief, I know we recently installed some cameras at Aller Park after the upgrades we did at the park. Are we, is the police department monitoring those cameras on a regular basis, or how?
We don't have somebody, it's like the other cameras, I don't have somebody that can actively monitor them currently, like full time, but we are able to have access to it. It's like any of the other cameras that the city has. So when we are able to, or there's a need to, we do have access to that stuff.
We had an incident recently there, and I'd like to be able to go back and view those footage of that, or someone do that, determine who was involved. I know we had to call the fire department out there for young man who got a little inebriated, caused some problem. But yeah, if we have a system for going back and checking it, I think that would be
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't have somebody that monitors them on a daily basis. But we do have access to that. Everybody, all the departments, everybody's got stuff. They make sure we have access when we have these situations. But we use that as a tool for the investigation to determine what leads we have that might pan out into identifying suspects responsible for these various incidences that occur.
Also, I want to thank you for the added attention you've given to our neighborhood with traffic control. And I've seen some differences in people's behavior because of it, so I appreciate that.
No problem. We're trying to, if folks will let us know what's going on, and we will definitely try to put the effort into identifying and addressing those issues.
Mr. McGregor. Here's one national story for Malden in the last couple of weeks in Fox News website and everything about Chucky. Didn't know if that was present here. I know it's not allowed in the report, but it's awfully dangerous what that is. Every time you go to ATM, I'm always looking behind me. That doesn't mean I just didn't know if that occurred down here, but when I saw it report, I'm like, that's all in the background. So I didn't know if that was an issue here yet. You've seen it, heard it, or anyone's reported it.
It is new. We have had one recently. We were involved in some of that. We actually have done some correspondence with the media about our knowledge. It's, for me, I'm learning a lot about this new trend through our investigators and somewhat, because as you said, this is something that we haven't seen a lot of, so it's new to us. But we have had an incident, and our guys have been working closely with some of the other agencies too, because a lot of that is, it's intertwined with one another, the same folks that they, of course, they don't just stay in one jurisdiction, they move around from each one, so.
Chief, can, for the rest of us, can you explain what jugging is? I know, but if you could explain that.
And I can give you the basic stuff that I'm still learning about it, but yeah, it boils down to someone following someone from ATMs and so forth, and then trying to commit the robberies after they realize they potentially taken out sums of cash and things like that, or they've left them in the vehicle, they'll break into the vehicle. So there's a few variations on how it works, but the simplicity of it is that you're being followed by someone who's targeting you because they've seen you at the bank or the ATM, and they potentially figure you have cash.
Council? Thank you, Chief. Any questions for
Thank you
other
very
departments? All right, I want to thank all of our department heads and park representatives for being here. You are excused if you would like to go. You don't have to stay for the rest of the council meeting. Of course, you are welcome to stay if you'd like. Next is item 7, business. These are items that are anticipated to come before council at the next business meeting. Actually, in this particular case, the only item we have on the agenda is a recommendation to be sent to the planning commission, so it won't come to our next business meeting. If it comes back to the planning commission, it will come back to our meeting of the whole, so just a clarification there. Item 7A, short-term rentals. Under our current ordinances, short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, that kind of thing, they're not allowed. We haven't aggressively enforced this. There's a demand for this type of rental, both by property owners wishing to take advantage of the property they own, and by travelers who wish to use this type of lodging. And keeping this type of business illegal in Simpsonville is not practical, and I don't think it would be a particularly popular decision, since we know we have short-term rentals, and they're operating in the city, and it's not at all our intent to formally illegalize short-term rentals. The reason I brought this up really centers around two major concerns with allowing short-term rentals to operate under the radar. First, short-term rentals and hotels and motels are not operating on the same footing. Currently, short-term rentals are not reliably, I'm not saying that this applies to all short-term rentals, but some are not reliably paying business licensing or collecting hospitality and accommodations taxes. So it gives them an unfair advantage. They can charge less to the consumer, so they have an advantage over the hotels and motels who do reliably pay their business licenses and collect hotel and accommodations taxes from their lodgers. Second, without an ordinance in place, if we do have a problem in a short-term rental, for example, let's say it becomes a place that's popular with hosting parties that are disruptive to the neighbors, then the Simpsonville Police Department doesn't have something that they can point to in order to get that issue under control. There are other ordinances that would apply, but it's a little more difficult. It would only apply on a case-by-case basis, but nothing where you can go back to the property owner and say, hey, listen, there's this problem under our rental ordinance. You need to control that problem as the person who is renting out the property. There's some additional points that have been brought to my attention by Councilmember Pinkerton, and I think we'll cover those when we begin discussion. Members of council, I move to send a request along with the applicable documentation to the Planning Department and Planning Commission to consider regulation of short-term rentals and for them to return a recommendation to the committee of the whole. So I have a motion from the mayor and a second from Councilmember O'Rear. Discussion? Councilmember O'Rear. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Rochette. Okay. Yeah, I just want to clarify, are we only discussing the planning commission item today? Yes, that's all we're discussing. It's just sending this to the planning commission for them to send a recommendation back to us. Okay, do you have any questions about that in particular? Really on the second page, I don't ask questions that I might not even know the answers, and that's why I'm property shall be in its entirety shall be prohibited to rent on a per week basis. How does that differ from somebody subletting a room in their home, their townhouse, their apartment? Is there any difference? If y'all just express these and write notes and come back to me, that's fine. I just have questions, because I know there are people that own townhomes or apartments that have 2-3 bedrooms, they sublet a room. I didn't know if this pertained to that also, because they're, I don't even know if they're on the room they have. Number 2, the rental of an attached single-family dwelling or apartment is strictly prohibited, so that would knock out apartments, townhouses, carriage houses, anything that has a sheer wall, correct? That's what I'm seeing there. And then in 5, let's see, number of adult guests, that would pretty much limit this to a 3-bedroom home. So if someone had a larger home, they would take Airbnb. It's going to be limited to 3 bedrooms. It has to be per bedroom in almost all instances. And that seems a little much to limit that part. 5, part 5, I don't get the, and maybe Mr. Kirby could help with this, I don't understand the concrete or asphalt paving part of that. I mean, some people just, excuse me, asphalt additions, excuse me, to their driveways and things. I didn't understand why, and maybe someone tell me why that part is there. And in part 8, I just don't, that sounds awfully invasive to keep a 2-year record of who injured. So short-term rental would be too nice, and you're keeping a 2-year database of people's personal information. I personally, I don't give people my email address at businesses. I just don't see that part of the transaction. But yeah, I just want to throw all those out there and get screws, get other feedback and everything else and see what everyone else feels about that. Thanks.
Councilmember Weir. Mr. Kirby, I'm hoping that you're taking notes, or we'll certainly have the audio so that you can take these questions back to the planning commission. Thank you. And for clarification to council, these 2 ordinances that are the drafts were put together by Mr. Knudsen, our former planning director, who had those in place, and then we kind of put that on hold and brought it back up to, let's reconsider that. So that's where this comes from. There are 2 ordinances, because one is the ordinance that would establish regulating the short-term rentals, and the other was the text amendments that would go with the zoning ordinance. So it requires 2 separate ordinances for that. Council, Mr. Roche.
I don't really want to hear the answer to the question, but I might be able to exploring how long a general hotel keeps records of who stayed, because I imagine that be years long. I know, like, if you remember, Fulton Honors for HTV, I think the record in 2012. So I don't think it's necessarily basic to keep records of who stayed. I'm not sure the city needs to tap those for any reason. That might be a little bit of invasion of privacy.
Is there any way to know, probably not, I don't know how we would, how many this would affect and how much potential HA tax that to the bottom line? Is there any idea of how many people are in the city that?
So one thing that we do not have a handle on is exactly how many short-term rentals there are in the city. We know they're there because you can go look it up on VRBO and see, can I rent a place in Simpsonville, or look it up on Airbnb. So we know that they're out there, but they're, even though you know they're there, you can't go there and find out exactly where they are, who the property owner is, or get a very clean list of what they are. The last number that I heard, which is not recent, was that there were 30 to 40 of these in Simpsonville. So if they're being rented on a fairly regular basis, there would be, there would be some additional revenue related to that. And I'm not chasing the revenue. I'm education getting us on even footing with the hotel hotels.
The other couple of other comments, Mr. Phillips spoke to a 90-day collection period. Are we, is that in the draft that we were aware, the planning commission be aware that we would be able to have taxes back day 91?
As far as I know, that's news to me, but I do think that there are some good considerations about the definition of the length of time that makes it a short-term rental versus a medium-term rental versus a longer-term rental. I think this is something that also needs to be considered by the planning commission, what that length of time is. Maybe 30 days is a good number for that.
Another question would be, if someone owns 3 to 5 properties, they would only have to fill out one business license, correct? Or they have to fill out a business license per property?
If it's the same business, there's no reason why they can't have a company that includes multiple properties. If that's their choice.
I'm for planning commission looking at this. I don't want to come down on it when it's all said and done. I would encourage Phillips, speakers tonight, to this, and others that you might know to go to the planning commission to speak. You guys obviously know this even more than anyone from you tonight, so maybe you can help direct planning commission. When you're making these rules, so we make a good, fair decision.
Councilor Rochette.
I'm a little concerned about the number of adults per bedroom. I mean, even in your average hotel, you can have 2 queen beds, you can technically have 4 adults in 1 bedroom. You have an adjoining bedroom, so you can see how that goes. I don't know if we should necessarily regulate that. We can really get in the weeds with this if we get too picky. And then, then it comes to problem with enforcement. Who's going to not conform, count the number of adults, and then you get a room. We probably should be making ordinances that we can enforce fairly for everyone. I'm not saying there should be ordinances, I'm just saying we don't get in the weeds with that. And given what we've heard tonight, I think we need to delineate between short-term rentals and mid-term rentals if we do pass the ordinance. As someone said tonight, 30 days is usually the limit for a short-term, and that's for good reason. Although even at some hotels, even if they have a 2-week limit, you can literally check out and you just check into a different room and your stay starts. So if you don't live in that hotel, you want to. So there's ways of skirting around this, but it's still a good idea to have something in place. I just don't think we need to get, I think we need to delineate between short-term and mid-term. I don't think we need quite so much wording. The large gatherings part, weddings, reunions, and gatherings of more than 8 persons. If somebody rents out a very large house, they can very well have 8 persons. So I don't necessarily think we should limit that. And the whole reason people come here is usually to visit family for this type of events. Not that they're going to have the event at a 3-bedroom to that here on Main Street. But if there are larger properties, they should be gathered there. The driving and the driveway, whether or not it's paved, I guess, kind of like Mr. O'Meara brought up, I'm not sure why that's important, other than if it's in an area where everything is paved. If there were a short-term rental in my neighborhood, I wouldn't want them parking on the grass. I wouldn't want them laying down a gravel lot, it's junky and parking on it. So I think there should be something in place. But if it's off the beaten path, on the edges, of the county, and they have a gravel lot already, I wouldn't think for a lot. Anyway, one more thing to consider. That's all. Thank you.
I'm going to cover Mr. Pinkerton's issues that he made me aware of, pass these along to the planning commission as well. On the ordinance for
establishing the short-term rental regulations, paragraph, under section 10-294, permit required, paragraph B, would require a permit to go along with the business license. And we just want to make sure, Mr. Pinker wants to make sure that we are not setting up a requirement for our staff that it's difficult to run through our evolved business licensing software, that, that when we apply for a business license this time, that's something that you easily do. We're not just by accidentally putting some words in an ordinance, making something very difficult for staff. So we just want to make sure that's covered. Section 10-295, application for permit fee, paragraph AA, discusses properties located in a neighborhood with a property owners association and homeowners association. There's a question around, for example, Powerpole has a pretty strong homeowners association. If you move into Powerpole, you're in, you have to pay the dues, and you can be held accountable for complying with their covenants. But in Poinsettia, for example, they don't have a strong homeowners association. And so the question is there a mechanism in place where a neighborhood like Poinsettia could possibly enact a ban on short-term rentals? What we don't want to do is if the homeowners association decides to enact a ban on short-term rentals, that's up to that homeowners association. We're not trying to override their rules. So that's a question. I'll pass these along to you, Mr. with you. And then under paragraph B, it imposes a fee for any short-term rental that's found to be operating without a business license. And a permit for the short-term rental to be licensed and permitted effectively is a punitive measure for anyone caught who's trying to operate under the radar. In that section, there's a fill-in-the-blank date to allow for a grace period after the enactment of the ordinance. And we just need to be sure that we allow several months, because the idea here is not to catch people out. We want to give people, plenty of time to get their permits and do all that stuff. So I'll pass those along. That's that. Just
to clarify one thing we talked about. First of all, I'm glad we're doing this forward thing, and I'm not advocating for or against short-term rentals. I think we get a policy in place. One of my questions was, in say Poinsettia, there's other neighborhoods that do not have HOAs, and I know there's neighborhoods that have HOAs that now restrict any kind of rental. But we do have covenants which are documented in the deed process in Greenville County, for instance, that do not allow for businesses. I can understand when probably a couple frames of that neighborhood put together, they didn't want somebody to go to CVS on the corner of one of our neighborhoods. But my question was whether, and this is something the planning department can certainly get into in more legals, whether that house is actually considered a business. I know you can run a business in a house, and that's fine with me. I mean, you can certainly do that. It's allowed by our own ordinances, but if the house becomes a business, it would be allowed by covenants. Again, it's just a question I had to make sure that possible problems down the line, whether it ever comes up, who knows, but if somebody had an argument about it in the neighborhood that didn't have any kind of HOA, I just want to make sure that there's an opportunity to be able to go to something that creates the law, I guess.
That's very much.
As most of you are aware, we had extensive conversations about this at one of our municipal association meetings, and the idea came forward that each community has a different different need or a different approach to this. I think in Simpsonville, there is a need for short-term rentals. And as one of our speakers said earlier, a lot of it is people coming into town to visit family or for whatever reason. And they, in my opinion, short-term rental is superior in a lot of ways to a hotel rental because you're able to get the family together in a home and enjoy it. I would like to see us not put so many restrictions on it though. some of the things, I think, the large gatherings, I mean, if you have a family come in for a funeral, for instance, you might have a large gathering at that residence for a while. We don't want to necessarily focus on that if it's not causing a problem. And we have ordinances in place that will deal with it if it is. So I'd like to see us maybe limit some of those things a little more, restrictions. Our ward in Western, we have over 1,035 homes, I think. And Zillow, according to Zillow, there's 54 rentals right now in Westwood. I have no idea how many of those are short-term or long-term, but I do know that we tend to have more problems with long-term rentals than we do short-term rentals. So that to me, the short-term rental, I'm encouraging us to look at this and develop something that will be attractive for people to come into Simpsonville and have a nice place to stay, and the regulations should be as limited as possible.
I just want to say I am in favor of moving this forward to the commission and having this put in place, and agree that having more defined timeline of what a short-term rental is. Also, just a thought on that one that we were talking about, limiting the amount of people per rental. Is if you wanted to just not have a large group of people staying in your rental, instead of putting an actual number on it, just regulating it to only amount of people for adequate sleeping spaces. Because instead of, you could have 3 bedrooms and a pull-out couch or a couple of those, and people can have adequate sleeping beds in other parts of the house and could fit more people. So instead of bedrooms, just proper sleeping arrangements. But I think this will be a good thing to look forward to and have brought in how many rentals we have going on in the city.
Councilmember yes, I'm more in favor of a 30-day rule, that's definitely short term. But piggyback a little bit on Councilmember Peters, that I get concerned there, technically being a business. I spoke to outreach with the president in my neighborhood, and he put a perspective on it, and he thought about our covenants. I bet a lot of covenants out there have absolutely no language when it comes to short-term rentals, because they didn't exist until a few years ago. He said he would be very appreciative of this because right now there are no guardrails in our neighborhoods. So he would be like, so what this is going to do is this will be this unless neighborhood, our neighborhood has had 90% of vote to change our covenants. That's staggering. And it's hard to do. It's pretty much 17 out of 19 or even 18. So this will be what their covenants. This will be what they use to enforce short-term rentals in communities that have no language. And I guarantee you, I'm Sherry, or Councilmember Roger for answer, that a very high percentage has no language in their covenants. And so that's why what we're doing right now in the next couple of meetings is very important. That we get this right, because this will evolve the land for a lot of neighborhoods. But get the point Mayor made, Daniel has stated in the meeting before, as it comes to covenants, the more restrictive of the two takes precedence. So if we pass something that's this, but an HOA extends it to this, then the HOA, that's what is used for leases. That's what I'll say in the state of counties in there. So.
All right, I think this is all very good discussion. I want to clarify a couple of things. This is a recommendation to go to the next planning commission meeting, which will be in August. Is that correct? Okay, so we would not, if they're able to deal with this all by August. We would not get this back until our committee of the whole in September. So there's practically at least 2 more chances for public comment and interaction with council and planning commission. And then business meeting in October for first reading and business meeting in November for second reading. So this is not something we're trying to rush. The other thing that I want to encourage Mr. Derby to take back to our planning commission is this is a draft. This is not something that we are pushing on the planning commission. This is, we're asking the planning commission to consider this, and please consider all of the public comments that we're getting and the comments that council has made here tonight, because I think some great points have been made about we're trying to get this right. We're not trying to rush this. This is something that just I think needs to be addressed. But comments like we don't want to be too restrictive, 30 days. I think those are all great thought processes to take back to the planning commission. But the work is over, and we'll look forward to seeing what they have to come back. Councilor Roche.
Question then, so are we passing this to planning commission as in, we want them to vote that we develop a short-term rental policy or ordinance? Or are we actually asking them to go comb through everything that we just talked about and read through and bring something back in a legal form? Because that would involve the city attorney and
I would think we're gonna need, for us to get it back, we're gonna need something in legal form to consider, otherwise we're just spending our legals. So yeah, the request was to consider regulation of short-term rentals and for them to return a recommendation to the committee of the whole. In my mind, that would be a draft ordinance for us to consider.
so our city attorney.
Mr. Derby, yeah, and it would have to go through our city attorney.
And then when it comes back to us, we could change anything before.
Yes, absolutely, and we have 3 chances to make changes, absolutely. Councilor Brew?
That was my follow-up question about making changes, which we more than likely will. Doesn't have to go back to the planning commission and prolong it. We can make changes here in the council to say, okay, just see what we think.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. The motion we're considering is to send a request along with applicable documentation to the planning department and planning commission to consider regulation of short-term rentals and for them to return a recommendation to the committee of the whole. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed signify by saying no. That motion carries by a vote of 7-0. That concludes all of our business for this evening. If there are no objections, we will stand adjourned.